Hi, everybody. Welcome to Why Eagles Why, our weekly look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're up right now. As we start our first quarter, you know we do the show in 4 quarters plus overtime. Please remember to hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman with you. And HIS-TORY is being made, Pete. The HIS-TORY from the famous Longest Yard movie, another great football movie, about something that hasn't been seen. And we're seeing something with the Eagles, plus 350 to win the NFC at DraftKings. This wasn't around when they won their Super Bowl. In the legal sports betting age now, the Eagles, according to the bettors and the books, are supposed to win the NFC. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's not something we're used to here in Philly. We're the underdogs for a reason. I feel like it's a bit of a change, and I think it's a welcome change. But I feel like in a few weeks we're going to be like, I feel like we like that underdog story. One of the biggest movies around here is Rocky, and that's an underdog story. So I think the biggest challenge comes now is the Eagles got to stay hungry. Like Kelce said, hungry dogs run faster. He was referring to being an underdog and wanting it more. So they have to just keep the pedal on the metal and keep wanting it more than the other teams, no matter if the national media is already crowning us Super Bowl champions or NFC champions. We got to have that same mindset of us against the world, right? Nobody likes us. We don't care.
Bill, even if it does last for just a while and people are really caught up in it, they're excited. What do you think when you hear the Eagles at chalk to win the NFC?
I feel like it's good to hear, but are the Eagles that good? Because it's, they've shown a lot of promise on offense. Their defense is showing me something this year. So on paper, they look like one of the strong teams in the NFC. Packers had a really bad performance against the Vikings. Tampa Bay forgot to show up against Green Bay for a little bit. The Giants' hype died thanks to the Dallas Cowboys. So there's only 2 3-0 teams in the NFL remaining. And I don't know if anyone thought the 2 teams that are 3-0 would be these 2 teams. We're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and the Miami Dolphins, who beat the Buffalo Bills last week. So, I think once we get through the Dallas game and the Eagles beat Dallas, then, this picture will become clearer. Like, this team is the real deal. But it's like, you can't, just because you're the favorite, you got to keep playing and showing the reason why you're the favorite. So I'm excited. It's good to see, but it's, let's see where we are 3 weeks from now.
Well, and if the Eagles beat Jacksonville this week, they will equal their win total from 2 years ago. Go figure that out so early in the season. But Bill, there is something else here in the Gelman's Gold department you have for historical reference regarding the Eagles.
Yeah, I was just going through my morning notes today, and there was a couple things that you have to go a little back in time to see how this Eagles team compares to previous years. They're averaging 447 yards per game, which is the second most in franchise history through the first 3 weeks of the season, slightly behind the 2013 team that had a little over 461 yards per game. And on the defensive side, they've allowed 8 or fewer points in consecutive games for the first time since 2004. I don't even remember who the coach was in 2000. Oh, that was Andy Reid, wasn't it?
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when they went to the Super Bowl.
That is quite an achievement for this team with those defensive numbers, considering how just recently everybody was getting on them for the lack of defensive pressure. We're going to go into more of that in the second quarter of Why Eagles Why. We've got a magic number we thought you might never hear. Second quarter of Why Eagles Why, we take a look back. And the magic number I referred to was 9. 9 Eagles sacks against Carson Wentz. And Pete, we used to think it would take about 3 months to get 9 sacks, and it happened in one game. What was your thoughts about that and the game against Washington?
I mean, I thought the defensive line looked great. I mean, we didn't have to blitz. I mean, the defensive line put tons of pressure. Yeah, Washington helped us a little bit by continuing to call 7-step drops for Carson. Anytime you play a scrambling quarterback like Carson, you're going to get more sacks anyway. Carson's known to hold the ball a little longer than most quarterbacks, but I can't take any credit away from this defensive line. And the way Jonathan Gannon had them switching in and out. Jordan Davis got in there for a couple big plays. Brandon Graham, he turned back the time and had an unbelievable game. And the important thing about the defensive line, we always talk about how that the lines, you control the line. It's the most important part of the game because that defensive line now makes the secondary's job a little bit easier. The Carson didn't have any time to throw the ball downfield. I mean, he couldn't really check down. He had to get rid of the ball quick. So it makes the secondary's job a lot easier. It keeps them fresh. So it all comes back. And I think it all starts at defensive line and they have to continue that. They can continue with this rotation. Everybody stays healthy. And I think the Eagles, if everybody can stay healthy, I think nothing much will change. I mean, they're second in sacks in the league. They're fifth in overall yards. So they're third in passing yards. So let's keep it going.
Now, Bill, when you looked at that game, the feeling was Washington is going nowhere offensively in this game. No matter what they were going to do, nothing was going to happen for them. With that belief, do you think this score should have been higher?
Yes, because if you're just looking at the score, you're like, that's a convincing win. But if you look closer at the box score, and it's a consistent pattern, they're actually first half score in the Eagles games the last 2 weeks is 48-7. So, but in the second half, the last 2 weeks, the Eagles have been outscored 8-0. So they haven't. The defense was there both weeks, but the offense. What happens to the offense? Like, why do they stop scoring? There's no reason they should not score a touchdown. I mean, we're talking like no field goals, and so that's the area that has to improve, because the reality is you take a half off in the NFL on either side of the ball, teams are going to come from behind and sneak up on you, like the Detroit Lions did in week 1. So that's like an area that the coaching, the offensive coaching staff needs to sit down with the players and just say, okay, what's going wrong in the second half of these games? There's no reason why we shouldn't keep our foot on the pedal and run up the score a little more to just give us that cushion. They're not thinking about over-unders on the sidelines there. They're thinking about, maintaining control of the NFC East, but it's still, as a fan, analyst, whatever you want to call us, then that's a glaring weakness right now.
I think, Bill,
yeah.
if I can grab you, I don't think the problem is aggression, because I think them continuing to try to do these big plays in the second half is what is hindering them. It's a lot easier to stop the big plays than it is to stop a moving force of an offense. I think they need to, if they're not hitting those big plays in the second half, they need to look at the running game. And the running game has been good. We have a great offensive line. We have good running backs, and I think that's what the problem is right now. I think they're not. After they get these leads, they're not leaning on the running game. And I think if they start doing that, then they'll move the ball better in the second half, and then it'll open up the passing again in the second half. But I think if they just keep throwing it downfield, defensive can stop the downfield ball if there's no if there's no fear of a run game or anything like that. So I think that's the problem. I think once again, they need to run the ball more. I can't believe we're still saying this, but at 3-0, but we are.
Yeah, I did notice that there wasn't a whole lot of attention to the run game. It seemed a big focus on the passing game, especially this past week compared to the previous weeks.
Tell you one thing, Bill, when you see the Eagles score on the last play of the first half and pass up the field goal that would have made it 20-0 and get a touchdown to make it 24-0 at the half, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a blowout. We're going to be over 40 points here, or at least high 30s. So that is something to consider how this team will do going forward. And going forward, they'll face a different quarterback in the coming game. We'll talk about that in the next quarter. Third quarter of Why Eagles Why. Surprises galore in the National Football League, including last week. The Jacksonville Jaguars at FanDuel were 50-1 to have the highest point total in the league. They were the longest shot on the board. And at 38 points, they paid off as they thumped the Los Angeles Chargers 38-10. Pete, that same team is coming here now. We talked about the Eagles defense. Now they're facing the highest scoring team in the National Football League last week. What do you make of all that?
I think it starts with the young quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's obviously coming into his own. He's being the quarterback the scouts thought he would be. And he's a lot different than Carson Wentz. So it's going to be more of a challenge. He's younger, he's faster. He may not scramble as much, but he runs when he has to, and he's consistent. I mean, his completion percentage is like 69 point something. I mean, that's really good, especially for a young quarterback. I mean, usually completion percentage for a young quarterback is a little lower, but he has a great completion percentage. He's thrown one interception, 6 touchdowns so far. His game is just totally different, especially now with Carson Wentz. He's a little older. Carson Wentz that can't run around as much, and Trevor Lawrence gets rid of the ball fast. So it's just going to have to be a different game plan on the defensive line and Jonathan Gannon, and I'm sure they're getting ready for it. They've seen this guy Lawrence all year so far, so I think this is a game that's been circled anyway, and we all know why that is. Dougie P is coming to Philly, so we'll see what happens.
Hey, Bill, you might as well jump on that.
Yes, Dougie P, Doug Pederson, will forever be known as a hero in Philadelphia sports history. Why? We don't even know why, but it just feels good to say. He's the coached the Eagles to their first and only Super Bowl in team history. He probably never has to pay for a meal again if he goes to a steakhouse in Philadelphia. But it's good to see. Doug, sat out last year, and now he's back with the young Jacksonville Jaguar team. That's probably, an up-and-coming team in the league. I don't see them being a contender this year, but they have a young exciting quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, and Doug's coming home. So unlike Carson Wentz, Doug Pederson, I guarantee at some point in that game is going to get a standing ovation because he's beloved in this town. And it's good to see both teams have winning records. The Eagles are a 6.5 point favorite at the time of our recording here. And based on the Minnesota game, it doesn't really matter what the point spread is. If the same Eagles team shows up that's been on the field the last few weeks, the only team that can stop the Eagles is themselves.
Well, it's always nice to have a link to the Philly special. It always brings back a warm memory. Yeah, you have to watch that a couple times every week before a game to watch that. But now here's something interesting regarding whether anybody can stop the Eagles. The Jaguars, by the way, have only given up 10 points in the last 2 games. That's even better than what the Eagles did. They shut out the Indianapolis Colts and held the Los Angeles Chargers to 10 points. I don't know. Is this a better defense than we ever thought at that with this team? Or maybe this is the week that gets exposed.
I think I'm coming into this, whether or not Trevor Lawrence is going to be turning out to be what he is. I think the Jaguars have always been a plus defensive team. And I think even when they weren't good for the last few years. I mean, their defense has always been pretty solid. So I think coming into the season, if obviously nobody really knew that their offense would look like this, but I think the defensive side has always been pretty strong with that team. So I'm not super surprised. I'm surprised that they're currently one of the best defenses in the team, but I'm not surprised that they have a strong defense. I don't know if it's better than the Eagles yet. We'll have to wait and see. It's only been 3 weeks, but I feel like that the Jaguars always seem to have a pretty solid defense, whether their offense is good or not. So I'm not super surprised about that.
All right. It will be interesting to see how this plays out, and we'll come ahead with some surprises in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. Dave Fontep with my buddies, Pete Amato and Bill Gelman, going through the NFL season. And we came on today talking about the Eagles being the favorites to win the NFC East. So that's a who'da thunk it concept. We're going to go to it here. My who'da thunk it after 3 weeks, Cooper Rush being 2-0 as a starter for the Dallas Cowboys. That team was considered dead and buried after Dak Prescott went down from a week 1 injury, but they have come back and beaten the Bengals, and they beat the Giants. And if they beat the Commanders this week, they will be 3-0 with Cooper Rush. I say, who'da thunk it? Pete, what is your who'da thunk it?
I'd say who'da thunk it that the Cincinnati Bengals look so bad. We've all heard of the Super Bowl hangover, and that's one thing. But this Bengals team, this isn't a hangover. They just look like a completely different team. They look slow. They look stuck in the mud on both sides. Their offense doesn't look nearly as explosive. Their defense looks very, very slow. Burrow holds onto the ball a lot longer. Maybe he's held onto the ball like that last season. Nobody really noticed. Now people are kind of catching notice on him. But yeah, who would have thunk that they would have such a bad start?
And sometimes you never get past something that happens in the first game. They scored in the last play to forge a tie with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They missed the extra point. They missed a short field goal in overtime. And maybe that's a team that could be jinxed. Bill, what's your who'da thunk it?
Who'da thunk it that the Miami Dolphins would get off to a 3-0 start this season?
Yes.
You know, we're loving what's happened in Philadelphia here, but the Dolphins, not the Buffalo Bills or the New England Patriots, are currently leading the AFC East. And we're not talking about beating garbage teams. Like, I won't say the name of the team because I don't want to offend someone who I work with. But it's, they beat the Bills, and they had a thrilling come from behind victory over the Baltimore Ravens. And now they get to go against the Super Bowl runner-up Cincinnati Bengals on Thursday night in prime time. To a T. I'm not pronouncing his last name because I'm going to torture it. So I'll just call him Tua. He's having off to a solid start, adding Tyreek Hill and having the young Jalen Waddle in there on offense. He has 2 top-tier wide receivers. And the fact that there's no quit in this team. I mean, when Baltimore had that game wrapped up a couple weeks ago, and this team fought to the end and had the second biggest comeback or second most thrilling comeback of that week. I think there were 3 big comebacks that week. That
was quite a week. It, blows my mind that he threw 4 fourth quarter touchdowns against the Ravens, and a couple of them were bombs. I mean, the Tampa Bay Bucks have 3 touchdowns to their name this year, and he got 4 in 1 quarter. So yeah, that's a great who'da thunk it, and that's a fun team to follow. And there have been some big developments around the league in just 3 weeks. We're going to wrap up our thoughts with the overtime section straight ahead. Overtime on Why Eagles Why. Well, we've got the GOAT against the kid. Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes meeting again. And this time the GOAT is getting points at home. People are down on Tampa Bay. as they lose to Green Bay. I'm curious to see if the offenses will show up in this game. And in the Eagles game, we have two excellent defenses, even though two people who are the quarterbacks will get most of the attention. Pete, what is your parting thought?
So for this week, my parting shot, I'm going to predict the Eagles game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to I'm going to take the Eagles at 27, Jaguars 23. And also one game I like this week to bet on. I like the Bears Giants game. The Giants are a 3-point favorite in this game. I think I'm going to take the Bears at +3. I think they cover that. I think they win outright, but I'll take 3 points. I'll take the Bears +3 against the Giants for my pick of the week.
All right, Bill, your parting thought.
Okay. Well, I'm going to rewind to last week. I was real close in predicting the final score of the Eagles game. I went with 28-10. I believe the final score, the final score was 24-8. So I was actually, I forgot what I predicted. So a family member called me up and said, you got the Eagles game pretty close. So I'm going to take a stab at this week's game. I'm going to go Philadelphia Eagles 31, the Jacksonville Jaguars 17. And on a side note, I am looking forward to the Washington-Dallas game because it's an NFC showdown. Cowboys are a small favorite right now. And in my mind, the Dallas Cowboys, after that performance the Washington Commanders put on last week against the Eagles, I'm curious to see how Carson Wentz recovers from that, if he's going to be a deer lost in headlights again and just try to run away from Micah Parsons, or is he going to get the offense going again? It's just, because we're counting down the Cowboys week.
I was ready to jump all over the Cowboys, and Johnny Avello from DraftKings told us, he goes, don't forget, Washington's going to play desperate this week. It's like their season is on the line. So put all that. Hey, Bill, you should start picking the exact score at these books, because they pay very well if you happen to nail one. It's nice that we can say to you, Bill, you had that score right, but a little Gelman's Gold Ching would be a good idea too, because you've been right there. Hey guys, it's great to see you again, as always, Pete and Bill. I can't wait till we do it again. And everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Please remember to hit like and subscribe to be notified of future videos. And we'll be back at you soon on Why Eagles Why.